Well, hello. Welcome back to our home here at Okarga Farms in Northeast Oklahoma. I'm Chip Jones, and as you can tell, it is finally time to get the front porch all styled up. I was out working a little earlier today, and I was a little bit kind of weathered myself, so I went inside, took a shower, got cleaned back up a little bit, but now it's time to finish everything up. We have guests coming in a couple of days, and as you all know, there's nothing that gets you more prepared for getting things all together as when you have guests arriving soon. So what I've been doing throughout the last couple of days has been getting all of my fall flowers and pumpkins all together here at the front. And as you can see, the mums are absolutely beautiful this year. They're just covered with blooms. I mean, you can't even see the foliage underneath there. These actually came from the nursery, Sanders Nursery in Broken Arrow, and we have had a great year. The only thing has really been, it's been quite warm. So they've really been blooming out really fast. But over the last couple of days, we've been having a few cooler temperatures at night, and that certainly helps with the length of life, so to speak, for our mums. So we're glad to see a little bit of that. So one of my favorite tips, I'll just go ahead and tell you, and you've heard me say it before, this time of year, you really don't have to have that many plants. You can really fill a lot of your space together with just pumpkins, and I love pumpkins, as you can tell. A couple of videos ago, you saw me carrying around pumpkins and putting them everywhere, but they make such a great statement. And as far as the color of pumpkins, I am certainly a traditionalist. I love the orange. There's so many other beautiful colors out right now, and just playing off the color of our home, it being a nice white exterior with chocolate brown accents, I just think the orange really does pop. So it certainly is a favorite of mine. And as you can see, I love orange all the way to the front. We have these clear-faced orange pansies, which are up front. Those actually just got planted this week, so they are still trying to perk up. Again, we've had some kind of warm days, cooler nights, and that's put a little bit of stress on the pansies when they've just been planted recently. You have to keep them hydrated quite well, so they'll perk back up. I gave them a little bit of water not so long ago. They're actually perking up quite nicely. So what I want to do, I still have some finishing touches. As you can see, I've got some ribbon I'm going to be putting on. But one of the things I noticed when I was working on the planters is it needed a little something. I just didn't know what. It wasn't something that I already had. And then it struck me. There was just something that really I needed to fill in kind of this in-between space. We have this really tall thriller, which is actually the corn stalks that we harvested out at the nursery. As you will see, we'll pop up a picture to remind you what it looks like during the normal time of year. I always have these metal obelisks that are in these planters, but we've taken those out and decided to do something totally different. I showed you previously in a video, I was trying to think of a way maybe to just kind of tie them up to the obelisk. Just didn't work out very well. So we ended up ripping those out. Also took out a lot of the summer annuals, except for this asparagus fern. I still love that punch of green. And I think just by adding some color into that, I'm going to leave that all the way till we get to the frost time. And yes, you don't have to mention to me, I know I've got to paint these containers. My best friend, Charles, she was one of the first ones that said, Chip, you've got to get your planters repainted. They look terrible. And they do. They look really bad. They've rusted really bad. I can't decide if I'm going to paint them or actually get new planters. I've been looking at a little bit different style. They're actually a little bit taller, so I'm not sure if that's going to work out just well or not. But yes, it's time to certainly do some maintenance on these containers. And what we'll do is if we decide that we're going to repaint those, we'll do that during the winter season once everything goes to sleep, so to speak. So anyway, going back up to something that we're going to be doing, I need that something to fill in this in-between space. And I think I have something here on the property that's going to be perfect for that. So what we're going to do is actually go out, walk around the land and see what we can find and to see if my thoughts really will come together on that perfect punch of color that it really still is missing. So let me go get my snips, my wheelbarrow, and let's head off to the property and see what else we can find. Come on, girl. Come on. So y'all just look, this is actually one of my favorite trees here at the farm, and we have planted probably about 40 to 50 of these around the property. This is an autumn blaze maple. This maple is actually a cross between a red maple and a silver maple. And I know a lot of people don't like silver maples. They don't really have that beautiful fall foliage. They kind of turn silvery and just crinkle up and fall down. But the thing about the silver maple is it helps make this maple tree a little bit stronger. Helps the trunk and the limbs grow to be just a little bit stronger, which is very much needed for this area of the country. We suffer from really strong storms, and when those storms come rolling in, they can really bring some strong winds. We're going to pop up a picture here. I'm going to show you. This is the result of a windstorm. Actually, it was 2 years ago, Father's Day weekend. We lost 60 maple trees. 60! We had to start all over. But that just shows you some of the damage that can occur from some of our strong winds here in Oklahoma. We did lose some young autumn blaze maples in that storm, but those that were more mature, had larger trunks, certainly weathered that storm much better. And just look at what it's known for, this beautiful red foliage this time of year. It's a tree that will actually get quite large, 40 to 50 feet tall and 30 to 40 feet wide. Makes a great shade tree. I believe it's grows really well from zones 3 to 8. We're in zone 7A here in northeast Oklahoma. So it's really an ideal tree. If you have the space, if you're looking for some beautiful fall foliage, certainly the autumn blaze maple is one that you should look at. And although I love the foliage on this tree, and what I'm thinking is possibly adding a little bit of foliage to those planters up front. A lot of this is already curling because we've had actually a couple of frosts already. So I think what we'll do is we'll continue on. I'm going to show you a few more of my favorite trees this time of year, but I'm sure we're going to find some branches that are going to work out just great. So come on along. Well, Betsy. Come on. All right, y'all, I want to stop and show you one of my other favorite trees here on the property. This is the only one I have left. I have planted several of these a couple years ago. This is actually a sugar maple. Sugar maples turn absolutely beautiful in the fall. When I was growing up in Georgia, I lived out from the base of White Oak Mountain, and every day I would come and go in and out of town to school. There was always this most beautiful tree that I would pass in the fall time. And I can remember that so vividly. And I always wanted my own sugar maple. And I had a couple in Arkansas when I lived there. And then once we moved to Oklahoma, this was certainly one of the trees that I definitely wanted to have. But because of our stressful heat and dry here, they don't do the best, unfortunately. But sugar maples can grow to be very large trees. They can get, I was reading, up to 120 feet tall. Absolutely huge, which might be another reason they don't do that well here, because not a lot of our trees get that big here because of the wind. But if you just look at this beautiful golden foliage this time of year, it's absolutely worth it if you have the space and if you are in the proper zone that you can grow these. Of course, they are much more prevalent in the eastern, especially northeastern part of the country, but they put on such a show, and it certainly makes a large shade tree. So if you have the room in your location, certainly I recommend growing one of these. There's also a legacy sugar maple, which I'm going to take you to next to show you. And here in Oklahoma, they don't get quite as large or big. And I don't think the leaves and the foliage is quite as pretty either. I placed it here on the west side, but it's actually gets a little bit of protection from the western sun from the other trees that are right here in this area. And I think we planted maybe 6 or 7 of these early on. This is the only one that has survived. So I'm just hoping it makes it. Again, it's just we're right in the border, I think, of being able to not grow them here just because of our stressful weather conditions. And it really is the original sugar maple where you get maple sugar and maple syrup from up in the Northeast. So again, just a great tree to have out in the landscape if you have the space for it. So now I'm going to take you and show you that legacy sugar maple, which is an alternative here. We'll see if you can compare the differences in those and see what you think. So let's go on over. So here we are. This is the legacy sugar maple. This was the tree I wanted to compare just to show you the other sugar maple that actually does well here. The legacy sugar maple was bred to grow well in drought and in heat, and certainly this is the perfect location for that. Grows kind of in an oval top shape. You'll kind of see it's a little more rounded than the sugar maple that we just left. Only growing 40 to 50 feet tall and I think 25 to 30 feet wide. Certainly like the smaller brother to the large sugar maple. But I wanted to show you this. I actually brought one of the sugar maple leaves so that we could look at the difference. But just look at the size of the leaves, how much different it is. You can just see how much larger the regular sugar maple is in my left hand as opposed to the legacy sugar maple. So everything about it is just a little bit smaller. Even the tree is pretty much half the size. You can see why that sugar maple leaf always got my imagination, because it's actually such a beautiful large leaf. But this is still a beautiful tree. And as you can see, the fall foliage is just beginning to turn, and just how beautiful this orange cast is going to be. I believe I remember last year it actually got even a little more red as it got a little bit cooler. But again, we've been so warm and so late this year that all the trees have kind of been slow changing all of their colors. But again, if you live in this zone or anywhere south of here, we're in 7A, you might want to look for the legacy sugar maple. It would probably do just a little bit better in your location. Again, it was one of those trees, we lost a few of them in that storm a couple of years ago just because they were so young and they couldn't fight that wind. But a beautiful tree, and certainly one to add some really great fall foliage to your landscape. So now we're going to head on over. There's another tree I want to show you that's just beginning to turn, so come with me. So next I want to show you one of the most popular trees that we sell out at the garden center. This is the Chinese pistache. Not growing to be a huge tree, still can get pretty big in time. It certainly is a great choice for smaller yards and landscapes, and it is one of the trees that actually does quite well in dry weather. So the Chinese pistache is a very rounded shaped tree, actually staying pretty compact and pretty full, giving you a pretty good shade underneath. But what's so beautiful about this is the fall foliage. This is something that everyone notices around town. You can just notice just how it starts to turn from the tip going back, getting all red, orange, and golden, taking up the color of the greens. And then it really actually is one of the trees that holds the foliage for quite a long time. You know, this tree actually is another tree that we use here in Oklahoma along the streetscapes because it does so well in drought, doesn't get so big. And then the branches also don't get so heavy if there's snow or those strong winds that come through. Occasionally you'll see a few little branches broken here and there, but it really doesn't lose a lot of branches like a lot of other trees do in the wind. So it is a great tree that we recommend for people, especially if they're worried that something's going to get too large and kind of grow over the top of their house and they're going to have some tree work done. Certainly refer them to a Chinese pistache tree because it is a tree that so many people really do love. Although the foliage is pretty, it's not colored up enough for where I can reach. You actually see the color is really up high, but I do see some foliage just over on the edge of the tree line that I think is going to work out perfect for our planters at the front of the house. So let's head over that way. Oh, Bitsy. So here we are at the tree line to the back of the property, and I know I'm probably going to get a lot of controversial comments about this tree. I don't love this tree for sure. This is what we call the Callery pear. This is the seed form of what comes from a Bradford pear. So what has happened in time as birds have gone in, eaten the fruits off of the Bradford pears, then they go and dispose of the seed, which then drops to the land and actually seeds quite quickly and turns into this form of pear tree, which is quite invasive, especially here throughout the southeast. When we moved to this property, it was covered in Callery pear. These pear are real boogers, let me tell you. They have terrible thorns on them. They spread from rooting suckers. We'll show you an image of that here. I mean, they just grow like crazy. They live really well in the drought. They can take all of our severe weather. So they really do love living here, but they are really a booger. The only thing about taking all of them out from our property is it would really open up the back to where we would have no windbreak at all. So what we're trying to do is selectively take some out every year. We took hundreds out when we first moved here. I mean, absolute hundreds. Had huge piles that we actually burned to get rid of. But we couldn't get rid of them all, or we wouldn't have had any trees at all here on the property. So we're, again, slowly trying to take them out. But what I try to do each year is they are pretty for the foliage in the fall, and I do try to appreciate that part. And I think they'll be perfect for adding this golden color to the planters. You know, I was talking about needing some color in between. And one of the things I always recommend when you have actually a little bit of space that you can have some plants, trees, shrubs, put things in that you can go out and harvest, that you can use either inside or outside your home to actually extend and make your decor even better. I mean, there's so many great trees that you can harvest from. It's certainly in the wintertime. Evergreens, magnolias are great. Pines, again. But this time of year, not a lot of people actually cut the fall foliage. It's not going to last a long time, but for, you know, the guests that are coming over, just to have a little bit more wow certainly is a great choice. So I am going to cut a few branches off of this to use. I'm going to be very careful looking for thorns on here, but with having the great seed heads on here and this beautiful golden foliage, I think it's going to be the perfect touch. So I'm going to do some harvesting now. We'll take those up front, and then I will show you how it all looks as I start to add those to my containers. So if you do not have Callery pear on your property, you are very lucky. And you may not even know what we're talking about when we talk about how we hate these trees down here in the South especially. Let me show you the thorns that actually grow on these trees. These are the most dangerous thorns. I don't know how many lawnmower tires they have messed up here at the farm. Also some of our smaller equipment too. We've had to replace so many of them because these thorns do not give at all, and they just, as the tree matures, I'm even going to show you, if you'll just look right up inside here, how the branches grow. I mean, they're just vicious, and as they age, they just get these stronger and stronger thorns that actually are quite dangerous. So not a good tree in many respects at all. I'm trying to find the good today by cutting just that colorful foliage, but again, just a real booger bear to have on your property if you're unfortunate to have them. I think we're going to finish up. We're going to head back up to the front and get those containers all finished out. So I wanted you to definitely see the before I put the branches in, because I think we're going to see a really big difference. Again, just going out and harvesting from your landscape, you will be surprised at how many fun, unique things you can find. So now I'm going to go through and just add some branches real quick, and let's just see what a difference it made. All right, now it's time for that final piece. We have color all around, but we're needing a little punch of color on the front door. So I'm going to hang up this wreath. I've been adding some faux persimmons. I needed something orange up on the door. With it being kind of recessed and then being a dark door, you don't really see it that much. So you really need some color. And then this was just kind of a base grapevine wreath that had the green foliage and berries, but I added on the persimmons. I'm going to put that up, and then I'm going to add on that final touch. I've got to have a little bit of ribbon. So just a quick tip. One of the things, because I have a little bit taller door, I'm not a real fan of those metal door hangers because sometimes they are rather short and they keep your wreath up a little too high. I prefer using ribbon. That way I can move it up and down so that I can make it the height that I want. Of course, for older people, you don't want to be climbing ladders, or if you're short, sometimes that's a problem. But when you have a larger door, it certainly does come in handy if you have something that can move up and down. So I'm going to use this ribbon, which is the same ribbon I'm going to use on the wreath. I'm going to go in, put a staple in the top of the door, and then we're going to get it finished up. Come on, Bitsy. All right, well, we're kind of chasing the light a little bit. It's getting a little darker, but I kind of wanted to show you just how well I think these turned out. I do want to mention some of the things that I had planted in the planters. I had some little quart-sized mums, ornamental peppers, and kale. But you know, with the scale of these corn stalks, they're just so large. The planters are large. They were actually just getting lost in there. I had tried to actually use some of the larger mums, but the roots from all the plants that had been in there this summer, and certainly from the asparagus farm, they were just too tight. So it was really hard to fight to add those in there. And that's when I got that idea about just possibly adding some branches, because I certainly just needed some color right here in the middle space. And I think it turned out pretty good. You know, I did it fairly quickly. I'll probably go back in and try to adjust a little bit because we're trying to get finished before it gets a little darker. But I think it adds such a great wow. You know, they'll last for 3 or 4 days or till we have a really strong wind. But I certainly think that they add just so much color and fun to the planters, and something actually a little bit different. And then, of course, if you look up at the front door, I finished the wreath off. It's great to buy a wreath that already has some of the elements on there, but then adding just a few of your own really certainly kind of punches it up a little bit. And I just love that brown and white gingham ribbon. I will go back in and possibly even add a few more berries and things, because my eye has been catching just a few of these berries with some just leaves right here on the end. So I'll probably grab some of those and add to the wreath as well, just to add a little bit more punch. But I think it's really turned out great. You know, fall season seems to be some kind of a short season for us here in Oklahoma. The temperature's still a little bit warm, but just having the cooler night certainly makes it just a little bit better. So I hope you've enjoyed this fun project, and certainly walking around the property and looking at the trees. I think probably by the time you come back, we film another video, all the leaves will be gone because it's just been so incredibly windy. But it was a great time to just show you a little bit of that fall foliage, and certainly hopefully get you in the mood, because I'm certainly in the mood for some fall temperatures as well. And remember, if you liked this video, be sure to subscribe, like, and follow me, the Preppy Gardener. And Bitsy and I will certainly see you in the next video.